Hi, I'm Karen Hurt, and you are tuning in to the third of a very special series on talking about humility and ambition. And today we have Amer Kaissi, who is the author of Ambitious, The Power of Low Ego, High Drive Leadership. And if you've missed the previous two episodes, I encourage you to catch up. We'll put the link in the comments. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right, this is our final session, and this
Looking forward to it.
this one is so important because as I have been over the years, either when I was coaching in my leadership roles in corporate, now in the work that we do to develop leaders, this is hard sometimes when you have somebody who's very, very good. They're full of strengths, and they're lacking in the humility skill set. And first of all, to convince them that it matters, and second of all, to help them see it and break it down. So what advice do you have for leaders like us who want to build this and develop the skill set in other people?
That's a very good point in terms of thinking of building those two traits of humility and ambition in others who work with us and for us. You know, some of the leaders that I coach, for example, are too ambitious but are not humble enough, right? So they set audacious visions and they try to execute them, but they don't involve others. They don't get buy-in. They don't listen to input from others. And that approach is not going to lead to long-term success. It might work in the short term, but it's not going to have a long-lasting impact. And then we have other types of leaders who are too humble, but not ambitious enough. So they're self-aware, they're generous with others, but they are not assertive enough. They sit on the sidelines. They avoid having difficult conversations. And that kind of leadership style is also not the leadership style that's going to lead to long-term success. We need both, right? We need both humility and ambition, as you've said for a long time, Karen. We need to bring in both these together because that's the only way leaders can have a long-lasting impact. But the question is how, right? How do we work on that? And I'd say I would first start with, if you can, give your team members the gift of coaching. Give them a coach. I call it the gift of coaching because that's what I hear from people who have been coached, whether they've been coached by me or by others. They say, it was a gift. I needed that gift. And the work, the deep thinking that you can do with a coach is not something that you can do on your own. Now, if you can't do that, right, if there are no resources for that, then I say, you yourself as a leader, start acting as a coach for them. And it's not that you put them in your office and you tell them what to do, but start with what coaches do, which is start by asking them open-ended questions and try to really get to understand, why is it that they're hesitating to be more ambitious, or why is it that they're not that humble? So that's where I would start from.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it's interesting. Sometimes it doesn't take a ton of, you have the coaching, and every now and then a light bulb just pops
Yes.
on. And they say, I didn't see it that way
Mm-hmm.
before. And sometimes it's something as simple as changing their languaging or changing how they're showing up in a room. And so I agree with you that investment in coaching or mentoring or whatever it is that gives them that additional support can make such a difference. So, and I imagine you would also, calling back to our last time's conversation about that listening, going out and asking for feedback and encouraging them. One of our previous guests, Julie Winkle Giulioni, says, I encourage people to come to the coaching conversation or the mentoring conversation with a plate full of feedback. Say, so I'm not just the only one giving them feedback of what I've observed. They go ask some questions, and now let's talk about what you're hearing from other people, which I think is a nice way to think
Part
of
of that gift of coaching, I think, is the gift of the 360. And it's absolutely for that reason that you just mentioned, Kieran, is the blind spots, right? We all have blind spots. And this is documented by research. I know we talked about research the first time around, but there is very clear research. There's this great article, and the title of the article is Others Know Us Better Than We Know Ourselves. And it documents very clearly, empirically, that the way others see you tends to be more accurate than the way you see yourself.
Nice. All right. We have been having a fabulous conversation over the last 3 weeks, and I have been asking you the questions that were on my mind. What have I not asked you, or what would you want to leave people with that you think is so important as they're exploring this important concept of being both humble and ambitious?
I think the question that maybe we didn't address is a question that typically comes up in this situation, which is, okay, we get it. You need to be humble and ambitious to reach success. But what about all of those people who don't show that and still have been successful, right? So everyone has in their mind an example of a narcissist or a jerk, for a lack of a better term,
Yeah.
who has been successful. And people want to know, how do we make sense of that? And the way I make sense of that, because again, we look at the data and the research, is that that is more the exception to the rule rather than the rule itself, right? Every rule has exceptions. And in this case, the exception is, yes, there has been over the years a few brilliant jerks, if you want, or some self-centered narcissists who have succeeded. And that's possible. But for most of us, the best way to succeed is to bring in humility and ambition. And the other point that I would make is, the brilliant jerks succeed in the short term, not in the long term. If you want to have a long lasting impact, if you want to leave a legacy in your organization, in your community, on your team members, then the path is through humility and ambition.
I agree with you so much. It's interesting. Again, these conversations, as I was reading your book, these conversations I've had over the years have come back to me. And I remember coaching someone who was incredibly smart, incredibly ambitious, who worked on my team.
Mm-hmm.
And they really were shutting other people out, and they were not aware of where they needed to improve. And so I was trying to coach towards this. And he said to me, yeah, Karen, but what about this person? And it was one particular person in our organization who also lacked humility. Look
Sure.
how successful she is.
Mm-hmm.
And my answer was, I think she's successful despite that. Because she's
That's a
so
great point.
strong in some of these other
That
areas.
is such a great point.
Imagine if she also had some humility.
Wow, what a great point. What a great point. That's, that question, what about that? Typically, when I'm speaking about the topic, people always say, what about Steve Jobs? Right?
Mhm.
That's the example. What about Steve Jobs? And I sometimes answer exactly like you said. I say, imagine the success he would have had if he had humility earlier on in his career. Now, he did acquire some humility later on after he got fired and he came back to Apple. It's well documented. He became a better listener. He gave credit. He didn't, throw people under the bus. But imagine if he did that earlier on in his career, the success he could have had even more.
Yes, yes. If anyone is interested in that story and the evolution, you do a really nice job of unpacking that. So if you could just let our listeners know, where's the best way for them to find you, find your book, learn more about your important research.
Absolutely. So to connect with me, I would love to connect with our audience on LinkedIn. I'm under my name, Amer Kaissi, on LinkedIn. And then for the book, it's the website for the book is ambitiousbook.com. And it's one word, Ambitious Book, and it can be found anywhere books are found online.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for being a part of such an important part of this special series, our new experiment on going really deep on a topic that I think is so very important. Really appreciate your insights.
Oh, it was my absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.